We're here with Nick K0NCQ's Teletype. This is a Model 28 Teletype that he has restored. This really is part of ham radio digital history. All right, hey everybody, I'm Jim N4 BFR from Ham Radio Prep, and I am here with
Steve Garrison, M4 RTTY from the Stone Mountain Offer Memorial Radio Club and the Stone Mountain Hamfest.
And the TTY part is the part we're going to talk about today.
Oh, yeah.
Because that stands for Teletype. Steve, as far as I know in my ham experience, is my Teletype mentor. We're here with Nick K0NCQ's Teletype. This is a Model 28 Teletype that he has restored. This really is part of ham radio digital history when you think about a teletype like this, right, Steve?
Yeah, this is how we used to send before there was, email on your phone or even on your computer before you had a phone that would do it. I worked on these in the military. That's what I trained on. That's how I got it. I was in the Air Force from 1966 to 1970, what I was trained on. And that's what all communications came over from, all over the world when they had to communicate with headquarters or whomever. And that's what they used for that. Now, this machine was probably manufactured in the 50s, designed in the 50s, used in the 50s. And mostly all teletypes went out of use in the 80s when computers came along and printers, even the pin printers, all of a sudden pinhead printers. Along, and the machine that's over there is a tape printer that was used mainly for like telegraph or a telegram, printing the paper on the strip, tear it off at the length of the sentence, tape it onto the piece of paper, and when you send a telegram, and then they tear it off the paper on a tablet, send it to a guy here, deliver this message to Joe Blow, whoever,
Right.
And the little guy take off on his bicycle and take it, your house. That's how you got a telegram back in the day. So
yep.
That machine sold service in the early 1910, 1912, 1914 era.
Wow.
Right. I actually have a nice book. I wish I'd brought so you could read it. One of the guys that was behind the design of all of these things was a guy named Kleinschmidt. And he actually wound up with his own model when he left Teletype Corporation. The other guy was named Crum. The two of them were competed against each other, and the post office was buying some from Crum and buying some from Kleinschmidt, whoever. They decided to get together, and that's how Teletype Corporation came to pass. And it was actually Morton Crum. The Morton was Morton Salt. He was the money man behind, and those two guys were the engineers that designed them.
Interesting.
And that's the book I have. Talks about the history of printing telegraph is what it is. So,
as a ham, when you're learning ham radio now, you hear about RTTY as a model, and when it gets taught, it's about 5 bits versus 8-bit stuff. That's the basics that are told in the course and you have to learn for your license. But how did we get from kind of teletype and telegraph and wireline stuff to radio teletype, RTTY?
well, obviously, if you were going to go long distances like across an ocean, you couldn't use a wire necessarily, especially if you're on board a ship, okay? You had to have a radio to communicate. And so they came up with a way to connect the teletype machine to a radio, to a thing called a TNC, which people use today for all kinds of other things, that would convert the digital signals still into radio signals so they could be translated, and then on the other end take the radio signal, some audio frequency shift and so forth, back into a digital thing. These machines are what's called 5 bits. Emile Baudot is the guy that came up with it. It's just 5 bits. Yeah, and which will only handle 2 to the 5th is
part of the reason why it's in all caps, right? There's not enough data to do upper and lower.
There's only 32 characters available. Well, if you take the alphabet, that's 26.
So you'll get period and a few other things in
yeah, so you had to have a space character, you had to have a carriage return, which is this is doing when it goes back there, and you had to have some of the line feed to move the paper up to the next line.
Right.
So that took up 32. Then they did what shift So you get the numbers and the punctuation and all that.
Okay.
So that's why it was all capital letters. So.
Got it. So is it possible to get one of these running off of radio today? Are there radio signals people can download? I mean, sure, RTTY contest exchanges.
Oh, well, actually, they have that one, RTTY contest every year. That's
right.
Mostly computers, so.
Yep.
And I've been on one of those, and it was the year that they were trying to get some more real heavy metal back on the air, and there was only a few of us doing it. I actually participated in that, and at least made a few contacts anyway.
Oh, great.
I used my Flex 6700 to run my Model 28 teletype machine.
Awesome.
Yeah, and interesting enough, I found out I was on the radio on the RTTY, and there's a guy in Decatur. I made contact. My first contact with him.
Your first contact was literally a guy miles away.
Miles away. First contact on real teletype was another guy just a few miles away from me.
So a ham likes digital, wants to hey, this is fun. I'm good with my hands. I want to restore these kind of things. How would they go about that? How would they get involved?
Well, there's a group on the web called Green Keys. Just do a Google search on Green Keys. That's what we're a member of.
Right.
And it's just an email group. And it's about I can't tell you exact number because it probably changed, 300 or 400 around the world that try to restore these, keep them running for, it's amazing how many people don't know what a teletype machine is. These machines are all designed by hand. They weren't designed with computers. So that's another thing that's amazing about it. And the biggest thing on this, I have one, it's the same kind of machine. This is running off of a feed off of the internet. It's called ITTY.
ITTY. So if I had a teletype, I could set it up and get a feed and have myself running.
You just go to a web address. They're sending messages out, and every once in a while there's a pause. Notice the message ends in NNN.
So just to rip and show, here is ITTY news. So they actually feed out news articles. Sandwich generation's feeling the squeeze, and Harris Trump to share his campaign's flood south. And I remember working at a radio station in the 80s, and we would get our feed, and it was a better printer, but this is the same kind of stuff we would get in, and it was rip and read news. And our news people would go mark this up a little bit, and this is what they used to get on the air to do the 8 o'clock news.
They usually had somebody in this, what they call a gopher, I guess, to go to teletype, tear it off, take it to the announcer. Again, they were started in the 1800s designing. That's when Kleinschmidt and Crum started designing these things in the 1800s, and they combined in the early 1900s. And then Kleinschmidt retired from teletype. And then his son talked him to get in to start building ready for the military, but he couldn't he'd given up all his rights, so he had to design something completely different. And that was Kleinschmidt brand of machine, which was quite a bit, and I worked on those. That's the fact that I worked on those in the military more than I worked on the Model 28, so yeah, quite a few of those. But if you go to the website for Green Keys, you can get in the email list. It's an email list you can join, and there's all kinds of people ask questions. Hey, I got this problem. What do I do about it? So on and so forth. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember enough about my training from a long time ago. I've helped people repair their teletypes via email.
Oh, that's all.
I haven't done one with text yet. Sometimes that takes a few more words.
Steve, thank you a ton. I appreciate you talking to us about RTTY and teletypes today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We've helped over 60,000 students get their US FCC amateur radio license, and we can help you too, no matter your age or educational background. Go to www.hamradioprep.com and try a free lesson today.